This is the Team Objection podcast from May 10th, 2018, episode 340. We have a bit of housekeeping to do. As I posted on our social media, my computer's hard drive died, which is the reason there were no shows last week. And if you're wondering why you're watching on YouTube, why there's no video, that's because my laptop can't possibly run all those cameras and everything else that's in that setup. This doesn't have enough USB ports. So I decided to post this on YouTube anyways. If people were starting to listen there, I don't want you to feel left out. But the cameras are probably a week or two away yet till I get my new rig.
Your laptop is a basic bitch.
True. And also...
What?
How does anyone know that it's actually us?
Yeah, that's fair. Could be imposters.
I think I'll prove it during this episode. I have a lot of things I want to say.
And it's very Shaun-esque.
Yeah. So
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, the sad thing is the laptop's only one port away from doing it. If it had an Ethernet port that worked and I didn't have to use USB for my Ethernet, it would have enough. But the Ethernet port, once you plug something in, can't take the cord out without breaking it. So, yeah.
Not ideal.
So, that's why there's also no anachronism for the foreseeable future until we figure out what's going on with all that stuff. But we still have some cold steel because that was actually already being done on the laptop. So, I mean, there's still things. It's just we're a little helter-skelter for the next week or two. But we're here, and we have things that are important to do because in the span of that extra week that we got, we had the time to review Avengers Infinity War.
Yay!
I saw it, actually.
Yeah.
And you don't need to see us this week because just close your eyes and think of the movie and visualize what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, but also to be fair, I don't know why anyone would imitate your voice, Shaun. So...
why or how?
Yeah, exactly.
I think too.
That's also a struggle, I'm sure, for any man.
I mean, you can't keep it up for the whole thing. You can do it in bursts, probably.
Not for an hour.
Not for a full hour of me screaming about this movie. This Academy Award for most erection. Longest erection.
Who presents that award?
I don't know. They should have it in the Academy Awards.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the movie, most erection, though. I was harder during this movie than, like, Daddy's Not Home Part 4. I'm telling you.
I'm assuming it's a porno.
Oh.
But it's I was just kind of like spitballing, but it sounds like that's like a weird spin-off of like Daddy, like the Will Ferrell movie. Mm-hmm. But like when things go really wrong.
Yeah.
And Will Ferrell pegs Mark, whatever his face is, Marky Mark.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yes.
Oh. I'm not entirely not there for that.
As I say, we have pegging on the show for the first time in a while, and you're not even going to respond? Come on.
Yeah.
No, I was just considering it. I was contemplating it.
The thing I've been imagining is not that. I've been imagining Frank Caliendo in all three of our camera spots doing all three of our voices for the show.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So before I start screaming about the movie, are we doing spoilers? Because here's what I think. Mm-hmm. When the movie first comes out, you want anybody to actually check your shit out. You can't do spoilers.
No.
But once it comes out for a little bit, I think people want to start being like, well, who's actually going to talk about this movie in depth?
No, we're going to do spoilers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been like 2 weeks.
It's been almost 2 weeks. Technically, like Thursday night, it would have debuted 2 weeks ago when this airs on a Thursday. So I'm perfectly content, especially with the warning up front. On the off chance you haven't been one of the billions and billions of people who have seen this already, yeah, we're going to go into spoilers because it's also kind of difficult to talk about this film without doing it.
Yeah,
it'd be really boring.
Yeah, we can talk about the first half and not even all of that, and then you go, shrug your shoulders, that's all we can say.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Some things happen and they're kind of exciting. So how do we do this? We used to have a format.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Well, I was going to kind of leave it open to you guys, and maybe we should have discussed this off air to begin with, but we're not professionals right now. We're not even running on the regular setup, so the hell with it.
Okay. Why don't we talk about characters?
Well,
we can talk about characters.
We can do that, but if we do a character-by-character breakdown, we could be here for 3 hours.
Not character by character. I think we could talk about like standouts and characters that we felt like didn't have enough like limelight, or ones who had too much, or ones who were just perfect.
Who was the best character?
As I say, maybe like either the best or the top three, and then the worst or the bottom three.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. So I watched Infinity War, and I immediately came home and watched Thor Ragnarok, and I hadn't seen Ragnarok before.
You're a piece of shit.
No, she finally did it. Don't do that.
I did it. I finally did it. But also, I'm conflating the two, and so I apologize. Because, Ragnarok very much directly leads into Infinity War, and so I may be confusing some stuff, so I apologize. But favorite character. What? That's tough. I don't know.
So I may be conflating the two, but anyways, yeah. Let me think about.
So Thor Ragnarok is really having an impact on who my favorite characters were. Anyways, I think my number one was Spider-Man.
I'm having a hard time.
Well, I was gonna say conflating. I mean, I think a lot of people did. I did. Not confusing the two, but what happened in Ragnarok definitely impacted my perception of the character in this movie in a really positive way.
I really loved Thor so much.
Yeah, I think the last two movies, Ragnarok and Infinity War, have just solidified him as like one of the best characters in that universe, which is amazing to me because I thought he was easily the worst before this.
Definitely, and I am just gonna say he can leave the Avengers and join the Guardians of the Galaxy for all I care, because I really thought that was just such a fun and I honestly kind of unexpected little turn, and it was just so organic, and I liked his relationship with Rocket, and it was so good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
It's interesting, right? Because he spent a lot of time earlier just off on his own, right? He was off in a dreamscape and trying to figure out stuff, and he wasn't really with the rest of the group.
Right.
It's sort of the same here. He's with Rocket and Groot. He's not just by himself, and with the Guardians at one point, but he's still kind of doing his own thing, and just the transformation that he's undergone in that span is remarkable, as what you guys were talking about. Before, he was off on his own, you're like, I could care less about his part in this movie. It could not exist and it wouldn't matter. Now, of course, he's like the focal point, maybe the most important character in the movie, and you're there for every minute of it.
Okay, so I have a question, though, because I loved Thor, and I thought his purpose of, getting his hammer/axe thing reforged was like really interesting. But in Ragnarok, the whole point is that he didn't have his hammer, and he was able to like still utilize, the thunder and the lightning to be like devastating essentially. So I guess my question is like, why did he actually need to forge that weapon?
My theory is that the weapon still, so they talk about this in Ragnarok, it still channels his power.
Sure.
So
yeah.
like before though, the channeling was like the only representation of his power.
Oh.
Like I don't think he had enough control for it to manifest outside of the weapon.
They didn't really say that though.
No, I'm conjecturing.
Okay, well, I like that because that gives me an explanation, because I was kind of confused as to why this was such a burning need when I was like, I saw him be a total badass without his hammer.
I think the other thinking, too, is that Thor on his own probably has no problem with Thanos, but if he's assuming that the Infinity Gauntlet's going to be assembled, then he needs this weapon that's forged from the same thing the Infinity Gauntlet was to counteract it.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's good, too.
See, too.
I would have liked like a line with that.
And that actually happens. Like literally we see the axe like boom, 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 which I mean, I'm playing God of War right now too, so I had a little bit of extra. The fact that this was an axe, I orgasmed a little bit. So
it was fucking cool. Oh, sorry, it was really cool. And I also loved because like Groot was kind of a very passive character for most of the movie, and I guess we're going into Groot now, but only vaguely as it pertains to Thor, and to like take that initiative and create the handle. It was so cool. I loved that part. It was to me, it was like a highlight for his character, because there wasn't a lot for Groot to do. Though I'm thankful that they didn't really elaborate on teenage Groot. It just gets it's kind of one note. Like baby Groot is kind of the same thing.
Right.
So I like that they gave him that to do, to kind of contribute to the effort. And then he ended up fighting with the rest of them, and that was cool too.
Which I like how, going into this movie, I'm like, how are they possibly going to balance these characters? And what they did was they broke them into little teams.
They did, yeah.
And maybe that was
smart.
obvious that they were going to do that, but
I didn't think so.
You seeing how they did it, I was like, that's really cool. You have the space guys and the donut, and you have Thor and crew doing their thing, and then you have like the Wakanda people.
Yeah,
and
it worked well.
It was really cool. I thought that was great. And it came at a cost a little bit. Captain America was nary in the movie.
But
I know.
See, I was worried about that, assuming he was going to die, which I'm sure we'll touch on here in a bit. I mean, him and Tony were obviously the prime candidates that almost everybody thought were at least at risk, if not sure deaths. But since they're both fine, I assume we're going to get a lot more Cap in the second one now. Yeah. So I'm thinking that's going to be the balance.
And we will absolutely touch on this, but the way that this movie ends, I think it's paving the way to get more with our like OGs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, the characters that disappear are the ones that for the most part, are the ones we're less attached to. So there are some that I was like kind of surprised that they disappeared at the end. But for the most part, we still have our OGs, and so something is going to go down. You know, like it has to.
All of the 6 are there, assuming Hawkeye's not dead, which it would be a disservice if he wasn't in this one at all to not have him be in the second one.
Not.
Okay, what?
He's not
Why?
dead.
What?
But all it takes to get him back in the fold is for anybody in his family to have been among the 50%, and then Hawkeye's going to be like, yeah, I'm here, and I'm ready to kill Thanos.
So in the comics, at one point, there's like I forget which series it is. I don't think it's Infinity War. It might be. Hawkeye like takes on a new mantle. It's like I want to say it's a samurai inspired thing, and he becomes Ronin. It's like another moniker, and he's like on a secret mission to assemble like new Avengers because all of the originals get like captured or killed. And I believe they confirmed that he's gonna do a Ronin thing for the next movie.
Interesting.
And he's gonna bring in like Ant-Man and some of the others that were not in this movie as well.
Yeah, I was wondering because they mentioned They do, right? No.
Yeah.
Yes,
yes.
they
Couple
do.
times.
Okay.
Yep.
And I was like, where is he? And I haven't seen Ant-Man, so I can't say if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, there were characters that were very obviously missing, and they called attention to it. They didn't shy away from it. They were just like, where is Hawkeye? Where is Ant-Man? So at least they were like upfront and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, they had to neuter some characters. Hulk, I think it's interesting for the character. Like, I mean, I don't know how many different arcs you can do with Hulk other than this.
Yeah.
But it was very clear, like, neutering. Because otherwise he throws off the balance, I think.
Yes.
Same with Vision. Holy shit.
What happened there?
Yeah, you wouldn't know it from this movie. Vision's one of the most powerful people.
I know.
Yeah, because he has an infinity gem.
Right in his goddamn head.
I know, and
he was getting
powerless.
bitch slapped.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Scarlet Witch, okay, I would have to say one of my favorites of the movie. Scarlet Witch is amazing. I love her, and maybe it's because I like Elizabeth Olsen a lot.
Yeah.
And I kind of have a thing for her, but I really liked her so much. But she's insanely powerful, also.
Yeah.
Let's be real. And so they kind of neutered her as well. But I think we're pulling from the previous, the Civil War, when she's still kind of coming into her powers. So that I can still accept.
Did you
Vision,
notice?
I was like, what?
Michelle, did you notice, just speaking of on her, that they also neutered her accent?
I did not.
And I was like, thank God, because it was dumb.
I haven't seen Civil War in a really long time, so I don't remember that. Maybe because I erased it from my memory. But she seemed fine in this one. I had no issues.
I think she still has it in Civil War, and she definitely has it in Avengers 2. But she would be like, hello, Vision, it's great to see you. And this one is like, she doesn't have an accent at all. No. And I'm like, thank God.
Yeah, just get that out of here. No one wants it.
Someone else also did not have an accent.
Everyone's going to be fine with the retcon if it benefits something that was bad originally. Like, no one's going to be like, hey, you got rid of her accent. Everybody's like, yeah, no, that's fine.
Oh, and Red Skull also did not have anywhere near the same accent.
Well, it wasn't the same person.
Also wasn't the same actor, but still, like, he was a lot more toned down in a lot of ways.
Huh.
And I was glad because of that to see him again. Everybody's thinking, what is he going to do? Is Thanos going to like bring back this villain? And I was like, please God, no. Like Red Skull sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they brought him back in a really cool and like tragic, depressing way.
Yep.
And I thought that was really awesome. And he kind of deserved it.
Yeah.
Like he definitely deserved it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's easy to gush about certain characters, and we've touched on quite a few that I like. I have a least favorite in this movie.
Who's the least favorite?
Her name is Gamora.
What?
What?
Why?
Seriously? I really liked her arc.
Because I feel like they kind of undermine her at every turn, and it's kind of frustrating.
Undermine? Can you explain? Because I liked her arc.
So, when you boil down the sum of her actions and what they contribute to the bigger picture, her individual scenes are great. I like them. I think they're touching in a lot of ways. But ultimately, what does she do in this movie? She goes to Chris Pratt and tells him, hey, if things go south, you should kill me, even though she knows the full scope of what could happen to her, and she probably should just kill herself right then. But that's debatable. But she doesn't do that. They have a nice touching scene. That's great. Then she ends up like trying to fight Thanos and thinks she kills him, but doesn't actually accomplish anything because the reality stone's like messing with her and nothing there is real. And then Chris Pratt tries to kill her, and it's Bubbles, which is Thanos' favorite thing. He loves Bubbles.
He loves Bubbles.
I love that they brought those in here.
There was like Bubbles, and later in the movie, it's Bubbles again.
That's a thing too. That's not just something they put in. That's a thing Thanos enjoys.
That's amazing.
He has a couple bubble-related attacks in Marvel Infinite. Like it's a thing.
Oh my god.
Thanos, what the hell?
And then she is so adamant she's not going to give up the Soul Stone location, but she does for her sister, which again is a nice moment, but also she knows what she's doing when she does that.
I would say that one's out of character.
I agree with that.
Like, you can kill, and maybe you can say, well, she's so selfless, but like a few scenes ago, she was like, kill me if I'm captured, and then she's like, okay, I'll give it up for
my sister, that we're on good terms now, but we haven't always been, and even currently are not on the best.
And the sister didn't want this either. She was like, what are you doing? Like, don't do it. And she did it anyway. And it's like, that, to me, okay, I will give you that. That one felt out of character for me. And actually taking Thanos to the location and being confused that this is how he's going to go about it. Like, of course he's going to sacrifice her. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Are you insane?
Then she does a 75-second end zone dance.
Yeah.
Immediately fails.
But like right before she crosses the end zone,
Yeah.
Like when they start taunting,
she fumbles on the 1 yard line,
and then the defender catches up and fumbles the ball,
and then stabs her in the neck.
So I really like the idea of all that we just talked about, but I agree on those points.
So,
but
I agree on the she would not give up the location. I really don't think so. Yeah. I liked that death. And I liked it because it was awful. And it was such a tragic, like the Red Wedding, different, people have different perspectives on that. I think that was great because it was a tragic and for a hero where they're facing the consequences of their actions and there's nothing they can do and they lose.
Yeah.
And her all she wanted was one win against Thanos.
Yeah.
And like even in this last moment, she couldn't get it, and because of like the worst reason, because this awful monster actually truly felt love for her and was able to sacrifice her. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I actually really liked their dynamic a lot. In a way, it kind of oddly humanizes Thanos, but also vilifies him. It's fascinating. I think they did a really good job with that, and I think that's why they were kind of using Gamora. She's a device, essentially, which is bothersome, for sure. But I do think there were some good moments that they tried to kind of balance that, and so I give them credit. But I liked, narratively, her death is really satisfying. If you actually, look at it piece by piece, it doesn't quite fit together, I don't think, but I like the end result. I do.
I think that's the issue. I like the scenes. I just don't think, when you piece it together, the movie is telling me that without her knowledge, Thanos can't get the Soul Stone. And the other way that she could get back at him, although it requires her to kill herself. So I understand that it's not a small undertaking, but that's how you get back at him. He can't get all 6. You know better than anybody what happens if he gets all 6 stones. But then she gives it up for Nebula. And I'm like...
Well, yeah, and she's fierce enough as a warrior, as a woman, that I think she would have done that. And I mean, she told Star-Lord that she wanted him to... that's horrifying. It's yes, the person that loves me the most, kill me. It's or you could just do everyone a favor and do it yourself. That's really traumatizing to ask someone. And I think she had to know that the odds that she was going to survive this were very, very small.
Just a little bottomize yourself.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
No, well, and these movies always run in, no matter what storyline you're in, or genre, you always have this. If you know something... or have something that the bad guy needs, there's going to be some dumb way that they're going to get you to give it up.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
I've almost never seen something where they subvert that. It's in every situation. It's they'll resist, but then it's the wife of the hero that gets kidnapped and he gives up, and it always happens. So
yeah, that's true.
So I get the same with Vision. It's the same movie. You could have killed Vision, and I know they're well, maybe we can try to take the thing out of his head. You just kill him right away, and then that's the Mind Stone that he's never going to get. But,
true. Though so yes, that is true. But I really liked the tension between him and Wanda so much that I didn't care. Like, narratively, I didn't really care. I wasn't super critical of the pieces not really fitting together because I liked the emotional resonance of it, and so ultimately it didn't matter to me.
I think all of this works only because this is going to pay off in the second one, and what I mean by that is the consistent theme throughout this, whether it's Gamora or the strange Spider-Man, Iron Man group, or Scarlet Witch and Vision, is people be like essentially refusing to compromise on people they care about, despite the fact that they know it's the correct, like imperatively correct decision.
Yes.
The only way, the one time they do subvert it in this movie is Doctor Strange, because he gives up the stone, which you're like, man, but then he's like, this is the only way. So, implying that of the 14 million, which I don't think it needed to be that many to still really drive the point home.
Yeah.
14 million and there's one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a little much.
Yeah. There's 6 billion options. It's like, at this point, it's just an arbitrary number. But,
yes,
him giving up the stone for whatever reason is critical to them actually winning, to their one. Because I have to assume, because it's a Marvel movie, they are currently on the track for the one victory.
You would think so. You think that's why he went from, I don't care about you, Iron Man, and I'll give you up if it means protecting the stone, to, oh, gee, Iron Man, you got stabbed in the heart. Let me give up the stone.
Can we talk about Doctor Strange as a character in this movie? Because I think I haven't seen Doctor Strange, which I need to see it. I would like to. But from what I understand, a lot of people really dislike his character, and they don't like the movie. No. I just mean in general. They didn't really like his character in his titular role in Doctor Strange.
Continue, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm curious because I really liked him in this movie. I really did.
Most people do. I think you have to expand your group beyond Tumblr.
I mean, that's also fair. That's super fair. But I've heard a lot of criticisms of that.
He started Doctor Strange as an ass, but that's the arc of that film.
Yeah. I don't know. I just have heard a lot of criticisms of his character, and maybe people didn't watch the entire movie. Maybe that's possible. But I really liked the banter and exchange between him and Iron Man. It was one of the most enjoyable parts of the movie for me, because honestly, not a lot of this movie was enjoyable. And I'm just going to throw it out there. It's entertaining, but I was like, it's sad. It's so sad. And I really liked it. They kind of added some levity to the situation that I appreciated a lot.
I love it when you go into a movie thinking people are at risk. And that's why I
know
think,
you do.
And I know we disagree on deaths of characters in fiction. And I think you have to have the threat of death, which means you have to have some death, because otherwise it's boring. And this movie in Harry Potter 7, the book, you go in and it makes it so much more of a visceral, exciting experience if you're like, I should be afraid for these characters. And when Iron Man gets stabbed, I was like, oh, is this it? And that's a great feeling to have. I did not know if he's going to make it out of that or not.
I don't know. I do agree with you to an extent, but I think it's how it's executed. I feel like in a lot of TV shows and a lot of movies, it's very much like, we're going to kill this character as to let you know that we're serious. And it's like that, to me, it just feels so fake and performative. And I don't care about that. I have no problems with the deaths in this movie. And I will be the first, it sounds weird because there's a lot of them. But I thought they were done really well, and I think that they propelled the story forward in an interesting way. I don't have any issue with it, and maybe you're surprised by that, but I don't. I think
I don't either.
I have an issue. Well, okay, I would have an issue, and so here's where it gets interesting, because I agree. Deaths, you need to have the threat of death, but I also agree. Don't go killing characters willy-nilly. There has to be some kind of poetic or narrative reason for it.
Yep.
And for that reason, that's why I knew. About 3/4 into this movie, Cap was not going to die. Because there is no way you're going to kill him at the end of this movie that he's in for 5 seconds. With no arc, no characterization, no nothing.
But did that bother you?
Not too much. But Iron Man, because he had some arc and it's clear.
There were stakes, yeah.
And I'm going to get to what I think is going to happen in the next one for like the big 3 or 4, by the way. But
okay.
Yes, I thought he could die. Now, Black Panther, Spider-Man, all the disintegrated, they're all coming back.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They have to.
For sure. Like, there's no way they're not.
There were combinations of those where you could maybe make a case for it, but because of a few of the people that were in it, Spider-Man being in it makes it a no. Black Panther being in it makes it a no. Like, those two just in the beginning make it like, they're coming back. They can't be.
They're already confirmed for other movies. Like, there's no way.
Exactly. And now if Marvel's like, well, they could, or people are like, well, Marvel could be tricking us.
No.
I'm like, well, then just don't announce a Spider-Man. Like, don't do it at all. Like, don't false announce something that's not actually going to happen.
That's insane. That's like tinfoil hat, like red on red kind of a thing going on there. It's not going to happen.
In the end credits, they had the like Avengers Infinity War logo that also turned to dust, which was a cool effect. I wanted them to then put the Spider-Man Homecoming 2 logo and have it turn to dust. Be like, uh-oh.
People are like, well, no, that's not true because Black Panther Shuri could take over.
No.
And in Spider-Man, Miles Morales could be introduced, and I'm like, no.
No, that's not how anything works in Hollywood. I'm sorry.
Marvel's not DC. They're not going to make a mistake like that.
Nope.
No.
It wouldn't be satisfying if they did.
No, that's exactly it. So you're going to bring in Black Panther for one movie?
Yeah,
like, okay,
sure.
Eventually, if another person steps in for Iron Man after 3 movies and like cameos in almost every other movie, okay. Yeah. That's fine.
You run your course, sure.
Black Panther, you're going to bring him for one movie and then replace him? No.
One huge movie.
Exactly. Cultural phenomenon, strong African-American character. Yeah, no, he's done. We're going to replace him.
Yeah.
So, they're definitely setting the stage for the OGs to pass the torch, I think. There's going to be some sacrificial stuff going on. And it's going to be like a symbolic and sort of literal, like, ushering in the new era to bring back Doctor Strange and Black Panther and Spider-Man and everybody else.
I think it's going to be really good. And I say this as not having a whole lot of stake in these movies. Like, I'm not a huge fan like you are, Shaun. I watch them just kind of, casually. But I think that, like, by the end of this movie, I was like, damn, this part 2 is going to be really good.
I'm really hoping so. The writer, along with saying, well, everybody's really dead, is what he said.
I mean,
everybody.
Whatever.
And I'm like,
yeah,
no.
They are really dead. But...
Well, exactly. Like, you're doing a weird technicality thing and stop being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And then he was like, the second movie, it's going to go, you're not going to expect it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an element where if you subvert expectations too much, you risk it just being really disappointing and bad.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So
this happens a lot in wrestling. Wrestling.
Surprise the audience, but don't piss them off.
Don't do it at the expense of a good story. Don't swerve from a good story just to make it unexpected. And
again, you've had 21 movies by the time this third one comes out or some such. But the fourth one, sorry. Mm-hmm. Don't decide that one is the one where we're really going to subvert expectations.
No. No.
And Kevin Feige is still, like, there's not a personnel change there. It's not going to happen. It's going to be, there's going to be some surprises, but like Gamora was a surprise. Mm-hmm. But I'm not like, oh my God, every expectation is blown away.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is Thanos. They built him up. They were saying in interviews, he's like the main character.
He is.
You can argue he's the main character. And I was like, bullshit. And I watch it, I'm like, no, yeah, that's kind of, he's probably the only one who goes through like a full character arc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of has to be.
Yeah.
And it ends on him too, which I really liked. I really enjoyed his character. I love the flashbacks with Gamora. I thought they were fascinating. I thought he as a character is really fascinating, and he has very specific goals that, to me, they make sense, but they're wrong.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right, right.
I love that. Like, to me, that's a compelling villain, and I was pleasantly surprised.
I thought the knife allegory was a little on the nose.
Very much
But
so.
It was supported by, like, she's balancing the knife at the same time that, like, all of her people or half of her people are being blown away.
Visually, it's very good.
I was like, that's, okay, that, now you've taken it from too on the nose to, like, that, now it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't mind it at all.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really interesting. And yeah, I mean, we know all these other characters for however many movies. He kind of needed to have the full arc to make him interesting. And he was, like, you kind of agree with him. And, like, Star-Lord, he had, like, a begrudging sort of, like, respect for him.
Yeah.
And because he didn't kill him. And
I mean, I think it's interesting because this is a thing we see a lot in video games, where you get characters that are bad guys who have some kind of compelling motivation. That's wrong, but you can still look at it from their perspective and go, you can see where they're coming from. Like, there's a universe where they're the protagonist of their story, and they go, yeah, I'm right. I don't think there's a lot of examples like this in the movies.
yeah.
Killmonger is a great example of it.
Yeah, there are others, but I think they're rare.
Killmonger,
they are.
I almost think Thanos is more...
Compassionate?
I get more of, like, that sympathy for him than I
Yes.
do for Killmonger, though.
I don't have a ton of sympathy for Killmonger because his actions are completely motivated by hate and anger.
Yeah.
Whereas with Thanos, it feels almost like he wants to do a service to the universe, and he doesn't understand why other people don't get why his method is, like, not the right way. It's really interesting. It's just a difference of opinion, I guess, and perspective.
It's so interesting because in the trailers, he has a line about how much he's enjoying it.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit, but because the trailers were a big-time fake-out. I'm actually appreciative of the fact that they did it.
Yeah. So
there are things in that trailer that are not in the movie. There are things in that trailer that are objectively different than they are in
like
the trailer.
Hulk running around.
Like Hulk
for
running
one.
around instead of the Hulkbuster. Like the amount of Infinity Stones that Thanos has in certain scenes that he does not have in the movie. He has more at a certain point.
Oh, yeah, right.
Things like that where I was like, you know what? I appreciate this because we would have been able to piece it together in advance if you hadn't. And as a result, I'm fine with you lying to me to protect the integrity of a movie. That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. I saw some people who were like, that wasn't really what happened. I'm like, great. Lie to me. I want to be lied to.
That wasn't what really happened. Like the trailers, the source material. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But in the trailer, he does have a line, and whether it was cut because it was intentionally misleading or just they decided the tone was off, I was glad because he talks about how he's enjoying it, essentially. Like, it's bringing a smile to his face. And I'm really glad they cut it because it was like I didn't get the vibe that he was really about that. He was on a mission.
Yeah. It was like had been selected as the denizen of this, and like whether or not he wanted to, he had to fulfill it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
That's so interesting.
Everybody hates Star-Lord now.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about too.
And
I was gonna get there.
now, so the boy messes up like pretty bad. But everybody's like, that's so out of character.
Absolutely not. It's exactly what happens in Guardians 2.
It was in thank you, Craig. It was exactly in Guardians 2, but you overlook it because it happened to have a positive outcome.
Oh, he's pissed because of his mom, so he's just going to open fire on Ego. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, he's doing the exact same thing here. He's pissed about Gamora.
Exactly.
He's opening fire on Thanos. Effectively, he's punching, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this was a negative outcome, but like, I don't think it's out of character at all. Does it make you feel any better that allegedly, even had they gotten the glove off, that actually would not have been the way that they win? Does that make sense?
Because it's not the universe that...
Because it's not the one
Yeah.
reality that they win in, or the whatever you call it. That's not the iteration where they win.
I think it's an end justifies the means a little bit, but it does soften the blow a little.
It just helps me, like, because I finished that movie and I'm like, God damn it, they were so close.
But narratively, isn't that kind of great to be so close and to have everything torn away from you and from the people you're rooting for?
Yep.
It was frustrating. I was pissed, but I'm excited to see where it goes because ultimately I think this is a more narratively satisfying conclusion. Or at least for part one. So it was hard to watch and I was really mad, but I can't be mad at his character really because I thought it was super in character. I haven't even seen Guardians 2 and I was like, this is totally in character for him.
That's my favorite part of the movie. That 10 minutes or so.
It's good.
Oh my God.
This one, I think it's the best action scene. I love when Strange finally goes all out against him and they're just going crazy with effects. Like, that's great. I love that. I didn't really see the... I mean, you can start to see it coming in the middle of the scene, that it's going to be like Peter Quill who's going to be screwing this up. But to me, if you're making a list of characters who are going to screw that plan up, it's probably Iron Man or Drax first or second, and there's a gap before anybody else is going to be that person. And so to me, I like the fact that they even kind of played with expectations there. It was somebody different, and it made sense because, again, he's a hothead, and he cares deeply about Gamora, so, yeah, like, he lost it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I liked it a lot. Well, and I loved how, like, okay, the A-Team did freaking great. They almost beat him. And then you get the B-Team on Wakanda, and they get freaking annihilated.
Yeah.
One by one. He spends no time on those poor saps.
2 more Infinity Stones by then, but
okay,
still.
That's true. Yeah.
It's still more impressive to me that the 6 of them do so well with only 1 on their side in Strange against Thanos' 3. Although, granted, the whole conceit is don't let him close his hand because that's how he activates those 3 stones.
They even figured out the thing. Like, the gimmick. This was like straight up like an anime fight, Michelle. Like where you have like a thing that the enemy does and you gotta like outthink them. It wasn't just punching harder. And there was some of that, but like there was a strategy. And I was like, you don't get this a lot in Marvel movies. I wish they would do it more.
They like kind of delivered Mantis to on top of him and to like do the thing. It was actually really clever. I was kind of surprised that it existed, and I was just like, I was just having a lot of fun with it, knowing that it wasn't going to... I mean, there was still a lot of time left in the movie, so I was like, this is clearly not going to succeed. But it was really inventive, in my opinion.
It was great. Yeah. Well, again, it was so important that they brought in a Doctor Strange and characters like that who their power isn't just some sort of force. You know? Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, they're just different variations of hitting hard.
I am kind of obsessed with Doctor Strange's powers. They're amazing. They're so cool. Like it's like you can do anything. Do more of it.
Yeah.
Maybe he was kind of neutered a little bit as well. I just feel like he's one of the most powerful characters in the movie.
He's one of the most powerful characters, even in like the comics. Like he is.
Yeah.
He's pretty OP. You should watch this movie.
I know. I want to now because I really enjoyed his character. I don't even like Benedict Cumberbatch, whatever.
Cumberbatch.
I don't even like him. He's a great actor, so I have to give him props. But I'm not particularly like obsessed with him. But I thought he delivered really well. I liked his character. I thought he added a lot to the movie, and for him to be a standout with all of these characters that I actually have attachment to, that was pretty remarkable.
Well, so yeah, he's powerful. He's great. You talk about Scarlet Witch. I do want to point out, even with 5 stones by this point, so 4 on the moon.
Yep. And
then he has 5 on the ground. And she was destroying one of the stones and holding him off at the same time.
I love her.
And he had 5 stones. Mm-hmm. And you're like, damn. A goddamn girl.
I love that scene. Actually, was really emotional for me. I don't know why. I was just like, I thought it was just beautifully done, and I cried.
It was for me too, and I don't even care about them.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't either. But I was like, this to me, there was some kind of like universal resonance. I was like, oh my god, I care about this on like a personal level.
Paul Bettany whispering little loving things that you can't hear,
but you can read his lips,
is great. Yeah.
That's so sweet.
And then
I cried.
You talk about tragic, he just rewinds the clock.
Oh, and I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, oh yeah, you know.
You know.
You know it's going to happen.
She tries so hard. It's so good. And I don't have a lot of complaints about this movie. No. I really just enjoyed it.
It's like in the worst way too, because he only rewinds like Vision.
I know.
And so like Scarlet Witch is just watching.
I know.
And the Vision's like, wait a minute. And then he's dead. Although he might not be dead. Because they spent a lot of time in this movie being like, he can exist without the stone.
He's a lot of consciousnesses outside of the stone.
Now, if that was all just an excuse to get him to Wakanda, then fine. But, like, she like, saves the...
Yeah, she did.
She saves the whatever before she fights the one guy. You know, that is the only flaw. Is the children, the Black Order, they were kind of meh. They were scary, but they weren't, like, characters.
I agree. They were kind of cheesy, in my opinion.
But I also don't know what you do with it. You have a movie with like 60 heroes and a villain you're really trying to flesh out.
You got to give them something to overcome.
Yeah.
Some win. Some small victory.
They were pretty powerful. So, well, one of them was. What was his name? I can't remember.
Ebony Maw, the sorcerer dude.
The one who went to space.
Yeah.
He was kind of interesting, kind of. The other ones were they had no impact on me at all.
Well, I mean, we get the sense that guy was powerful. We could see him do all sorts of stuff with like telekinesis and whatever. And then what else did you have? Like big dude who was clearly going to fight for Hulk, girl with stick.
Yeah.
Like everybody else was. I mean, I don't really want to spend a ton of time developing them, especially because they're only going to be encompassed in this film. But as a result, they all kind of feel sort of like mini bosses at best.
Yep.
I was disappointed that in the interviews leading up to this movie, they were saying how that order was going to be like not a foil, but like a way to characterize Thanos. Like he was going to bounce ideas off of them. And
what?
And I was like, that did not. I don't even remember him talking to them.
No.
And gave them orders a couple times.
In the
and that
very
was about
beginning.
it.
That was it.
Oh, speaking of the very beginning, Loki.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Called it.
Okay.
Oh
so,
yeah. You know.
I also did, not even knowing that about anything about Ragnarok, but like also watching Ragnarok afterwards, I was like, oh shit. Like it's so devastating.
Yeah.
No, oh my god, I'm sorry. There's people like yelling outside my door. I apologize.
They love the movie.
Yeah.
I think you never know with Loki, trickster god.
He's dead.
I think he's dead.
And
I think I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it, but I need Thor to actually mourn now.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, really quick, Chris brought up video game. Maybe the only complaint was that there were sometimes the progression felt like I was playing Injustice 2. Where like there's a little bit of story and then like out of nowhere they like have to find some reason for like conflict. And I felt like that happened at certain point. The biggest point I felt like, I'm playing Injustice is when they're in Wakanda and they've been there for like 2 minutes. And then, like, the aliens start attacking.
I think that one's iffy, and even though I actually like the scene, and it's probably only like 90 seconds, the scene where the two different groups of three with Peter Quill on the one side and Iron Man Strange on the other, and they had that short fight between themselves, is another one where it just felt like, well, it's been a little while since we've had action.
Oh, yeah.
And I like that scene. Again, I don't want to say bad things about it, but that's another one that sort of felt, I don't even know if shoehorn's the right word, but just out of place a little.
Yeah, it felt like a video game. And, I love video games, so maybe that's okay. But I was like, I'm getting an Injustice vibe. Or like a fighting game vibe.
With Wakanda and it happening like immediately, and that I didn't care for. And also, I really hated the creatures that they were fighting. They were just boring. It was like, pick a random, like, creepy alien thing. They just seemed kind of uninspired and weird and kind of like out of left field. I was like, this is like poor design.
I don't know what you do.
I don't know what you do either.
I don't have normally when I want to criticize something, I want to at least give some kind of alternative opinion or option. And like, you can't have 60 people fighting Thanos, whether or not he has like all the stones or whatever, and he would be a formidable foe for them. Like, that doesn't work.
You know what would have been cooler? And I don't know how much budget comes into this, because they were kind of generic. And you notice you don't get a lot of like really clear shots of them. You get a couple, but not a lot. What would have been cooler? I would have loved this if like Thanos, the thing you assume is on these worlds, you get a choice. You kind of like fall in line to Thanos's like thing, where you are like part of his group, right? Or you choose to stay free and die. Mm-hmm. That you guys got that too, right? I'm not making that up.
Yeah.
It does seem to be the case, yeah.
It would have been so much cooler if, like, this army was composed of these people who maybe they were forced to, but they had sworn fidelity to Thanos. And now they are, like, what do you call it? There's a word for it. Into his army.
Like,
consigned
servitude or something?
His army? There's a word for it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been cool. Huh? Conscripted. Yes.
That would have been neat. Because, I just felt... like, that fight in general, I had no interest in. Like, I had interest in terms of our heroes living, but I was just like, this is all just, like, kind of smoke and mirrors for what's actually happening, and I don't particularly care about these weird creatures, like, attacking, and then let's add in this, like, weird, like, spike thing that goes under. It's like, why didn't you do that to begin with? I'm confused. Like, it seemed kind of shoehorned in. Yeah.
Well, and it kind of gives Black Widow and Cap something to do.
Yeah.
Because they can't fight Thanos. I mean, they can't.
Cap can. He makes Thanos' fingers pull apart a little bit, which is shocking to the Mad Titan. He's like, and he just punches the shit out of him. But for a minute, he's like, this human is just, what the hell?
Dude, and you know, and again, that's more of, so Thanos easily could have killed. He could have wrecked every single Avenger that he fights, especially on Wakanda. And, like, he just doesn't. Like, he doesn't see the need. And that's where you're like, you're not just pure evil.
No, he's not.
If you were pure evil, you would rip all of these humans apart. Physically or, like, with your mind.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He showed restraint. And I was like, that's cool.
It is. I was very surprised by how they developed his character. I didn't think they would really go there. And they did. And they took the time. And, God, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes long. I'm glad they took the time.
And Josh Brolin, great performance.
Very good.
And he is among the poster children for why CGI is sometimes preferred over practical effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't do the same imposing figure, I don't think, with practical effects in this movie.
No.
And you also got that proven with Red Skull. Because Red Skull in Captain America was practical effects, and he looked like shit.
Yeah.
And this one was like creepy. So, Chris, how are we doing on time?
We're doing all right. We got like probably 45 minutes at this point. I can go look real quick.
Okay. Because
that's where we're at.
I want to give our scores, and I want to do like a little post thing.
As in like a preview of 4, or
no? Kind of. I want to do the predictions that I think are going to happen. So, score. This is in the... So, like, when I'm rating Marvel movies, I can do an order, but the order doesn't really do justice because in my mind there are, like, tiers. 2 big ones. Really great and, like, good.
Yeah.
And, like, Winter Soldier and Civil War and Iron Man are, like, great. And then, like, a lot of the other stuff is like, it was good. This was in the great tier for me. I still think my order is the same for the most part, up, like, the top 3. Winter Soldier, Iron Man, Ragnarok. But, like, this might be next. This might be my 4th favorite. I loved it. Well, I guess I can give the score God. I would say, like, a 9.
Nice.
0.5.
Whoa.
I liked it a lot, y'all.
I did too. I went into it with, I know a lot of people enjoyed it. A lot of my friends really liked it, but I have the burnout of superhero movies. And so I watched it by myself. I went by myself to see it. And I was just kind of like sitting there like, okay, this is going to be kind of a slog, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Blah. But I was actually quite engaged, and I was pleasantly surprised by a lot of the decisions that were made. We talked about some of the complaints that I had, but they're pretty minor. Like, overall, I really enjoyed it. Well, enjoy maybe might not be the correct term, because it was really sad, but it was entertaining, and it was, I thought, well done. And I'd give it like 8.5, and I wouldn't put it in like the great category, but I'd put it just beneath that.
Yeah, there's a pretty clear delineation between my top 3 and everything else, and this does not crack it either. Mine's tough because we've talked before on a couple different occasions about how endings affect my enjoyment of something. And even though this is a standalone film, obviously it's half of something bigger. And so right now I'm going to give it an 8. And that score may retroactively go up once this other movie comes out a year from now.
But this might be an unpopular opinion. I actually really liked the ending.
I think the ending's good, and I think this is one of those rare cases where I have no problems with them splitting it into 2 because of all the characters that they had to give payment to and the story that they had to tell as a whole. This is like the rare example of them not just milking it, which you could tell a lot of other series have done near the end with like, we're going to make it 2 movies.
Yep.
This was much more clear and thought out, so that's great. I don't know. I have a hard time vocalizing what I don't love about this. And again, it's an 8, so it's not like I don't like it or anything. I like it quite a bit, but
I think because, Chris, if this was it and like this was a movie and we knew we would assume they're going to do a sequel, but it wasn't billed as like a 2-part story. I think I would look at the ending differently than, I see what they're doing and they're setting this up. So if this had ended and it's like, oh my God, like Thanos wins and all the characters are dead and like
That's not narratively satisfying.
Yeah, well, and where's it going to go? I think that'd still be cool, but I would look at it differently than, I see the pieces that they're setting up for the next one. So
it's a halfway point, essentially.
So I get where Chris is coming from on, like, let's see where the next one takes it, because this is clearly still a setup.
And I expect it'll pay off well. Like you said, I think they've set things up in quite a few ways that will pay off nicely. And they won't just come out of nowhere, and they'll have been alluded to both in this movie and the other 18 in the MCU to this point. But it's still a work in progress for me. And as such, like, I don't want to go any higher. I've been burned before by making dumbass scores. And so, for the time being, I enjoyed it immensely for what it was. There are a lot of things lingering that I think need to be addressed, and as such, that's my score. And next year, I might come back and give this a 9.
Even pretentious Sally Kevin was like, dude, I actually loved it.
Aww.
because it does, he was like, I can't think of a lot of movies where the villain just straight up wins.
Yeah.
And in a satisfying way. And I was like, yeah, that's... And it was like, plus it just looked cool. So
It was satisfying. To me, knowing that it's part 1, and that there's going to be an actual ending, it felt really satisfying to me. Like, especially that last shot. It's so good. Like, it was so well done.
I'm 95% sure there was no music when all the characters were dusting.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh my God, this is heavy.
Also, like, it was heavy, and also, like, can we not with, like, the, I don't want to die. Like,
yeah.
Okay, can we not with Spider-Man? That was awful. That was awful. And then Bucky, oh God, I want to die now. Like, this is the worst thing ever. How dare you?
Bucky just calls out for Cap. Supposedly, I read, and I don't know if this is true, that Tom Holland improvised that scene.
I read the same thing.
That's beautiful.
It's just supposed to be like the first very beginning of it, and then everything after that where he like clings to him and he's like super upset was all just added on.
No, I think all of it was added on because the director said, here's what you need to know for this scene. Peter doesn't want to die. And he did the whole, I don't want to go, I'm sorry.
That was heart-wrenching.
And you're like, why, Spider-Man, you're getting a lot more time of dusting than like some of the other people got.
Yeah,
but you know what? It's okay.
That's where if I wanted to be a negative Nancy, I'd be like, so Spider-Man doesn't get dusted for like 15 seconds, but here's Bucky fall over, says Cap's name, dies.
Yeah. But that was...
Where's Falcon? War Machine doesn't know. He turned into dust in 0.3 seconds.
Yeah.
That Bucky dusting, that got me, it got me good. Did
you gasp? Did you audibly gasp?
I may have. I don't remember. I had a lot of feelings about that. Oh,
so
they're a lot for me.
If you're looking at the ending too, I would have thought he would have been one who didn't get dusted.
Me too.
Spider-Man?
I was surprised.
Bucky. I was gonna say Winter Soldier, but he's not that anymore. But yeah.
I know.
Well, you got to give a reason for Captain America to sacrifice himself in the next movie.
Oh my God! Don't do this to me! Don't do this.
Here's how I think they're going to address their aging stars. Here's my predictions. Chris Evans is done, and he's been pretty vocal about like he's very thankful. Like he's not ungrateful. But he's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move on. He is going to die.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen. He's going to sacrifice himself so that the new cast can like come back. Somehow. It's going to happen. I think it's going to be like, I think it's going to be a like chosen sacrifice. It's not going to be like, he got bushwhacked by Thanos.
I hope not. I really hope not.
Yeah. It's going to be intentional. It's going to be a tearjerker. And Tony's going to be like watching... Because their relationship's going to be at the focal point in the next movie. I guarantee it.
The repair of said relationship.
Yep. Repair just in time for him to die.
How sad, though, like, him and Bucky are just two ships crossing in the night.
Oh,
they fight all the time in Winter Soldier. They're not really connected up to this point. They get to hug in Wakanda, and then they fight.
Yep.
I hate it so much.
Yeah. And then Bucky, I think he's still signed on for like 5 more movies now, so he's probably going to become Captain America at some point. I don't know if he's going to get his own movie. But ensemble or something, it's going to happen.
I have so many feelings about them.
Although they refer to him as the White Wolf, and the White Wolf is actually a character in the comics too. So that could be another avenue. Iron Man is not going to die because
he has a wedding.
The reason him and Pepper talk about a kid in the movie, and the reason that arc is there, is to have Iron Man retire at the end of the next movie. I guarantee you that's what those seeds were there for.
Well, and Pepper wants them so desperately to stop.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do this and have a kid and have a family and the end of the movie is going to come, and Iron Man's going to retire, and that's going to be the reason why, no matter how bad the stakes are in the future, he's done. He's probably going to pass it on or whatever, but he's like, I'm done. I have to now move into the next phase for my family.
This all makes perfect sense. Totally.
And he's already talked about, like, we're not going to do this forever, right? That's why he created Ultron, and that was a mistake. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Ultron was a mistake, and so was the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
No.
It has moments, but not good.
Thor, I don't think he's going to die.
No, I don't think so.
One reason, because how much more can you take away from this poor man?
Yeah.
I know.
He needs to save Valkyrie.
Yeah, so I think, here's my guess. Or, okay, maybe it's more what I want. Maybe it's more wishful thinking. Chris Hemsworth said he was revitalized by Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. He found the character very boring, and then Ragnarok was like, actually, I enjoy this. I could do it again now.
Aww.
And so I hope they get Taika Waititi back to direct whatever comes next. And I really hope Thor 4 is the end of Thor, and I hope the movie is him restarting civilization for Asgard.
With Natalie Portman.
That'd be so
maybe.
dumb.
I don't care about that. Him and Valkyrie restarting the population.
Yes.
Not literally. I don't need them to like bone to get the Asgardians like up in population.
650,000
In fact,
pounds.
I would argue that their friendship is so much more interesting than a romantic one, and I don't want them to. If they do, whatever. That's probably going to happen because Hollywood. But I think it would be more interesting if they were more like comrades, like allies. But I would like that too, very much.
Well, what does it say? That I thought there was more chemistry between Mark Ruffalo and Valkyrie than Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson.
Yes, indeed.
Their moment in this movie was nice.
Yeah.
Better than anything up to this point.
That's true. That is true. And Mark Ruffalo, I don't know. There's a lot of different things you can do with the Hulk. He loses his powers forever. He might die. I don't know. I don't think he will, actually.
I don't think so.
I think if we end this with Iron Man being gone forever, we've already lost Gamora. She may come back. I know it's hard to imagine a Guardians movie without her in it.
I don't know what they. Yeah, but, that's my only concern.
I mean, the Soul Stone's powers are connected to resurrection, so there's possibilities there.
Oh.
And,
okay.
I mean, but then again, like if Captain America is the only death out of these two movies, I don't know. I suppose that I'm not clamoring for deaths. If it's satisfying for the narrative, fine. But like, I was glad Iron Man didn't die. Some people were a little bit disappointed. They were like, "Oh man, like that was the moment." I was like, "No."
I'm fine with it if it's Cap and all non-Dust deaths that are the death toll, and maybe somebody else in the fourth movie. I think that's fine. I don't think it needs to be a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really want to see Loki back. Nothing against Loki. I really like Tom Hiddleston's portrayal of him, but like, I think it's more interesting if he's not.
I think that would make us see.
I don't really need Vision back.
Thor, the first three movies are identified by the relationship in a large part between Thor and Loki. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And it's so interesting to set up a story where now it's just Thor. There's no dad to bail him out. There's no Loki. It's just him, and he has to try to figure out what's best for his people. Like, here's your first test as king. Lead your people to the promised land. Or what's left? Lead the 15 remaining Asgardians.
Lead them back to a life first, and then we'll worry about Valhalla.
And then that's how you get rid of Thor. Is because like, you know what? I need to be here for my people, and I can't. And kind of act like Odin. Odin wasn't traveling the universe doing fun shit. He was in Asgard, and I think that's satisfying. So even if there's a future threat, you can say, well, why isn't Thor here? Well, you know, he's taking care of his people, and I could understand that.
Yeah, and if it's not galaxy-threatening stuff, that's how you can get the power level back to a respectable level, although the introduction of Miss Marvel, or Captain Marvel, is going to make that kind of questionable, because she's pretty OD.
She is, like, the most powerful character out of everybody.
She's essentially like the Superman of Marvel.
Yeah.
So,
but more interesting.
Yes. But that's why I'm going to be interested to see how they handle her standalone movie, since that's set 20 years ago or whatever, and then how that leaks into the fourth one and what they do with her after.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so man, that's what I'm thinking. That's my prediction. I don't know how they're gonna bring everybody back. There's a few different ways to speculate. I almost don't even care to.
Yeah.
It's like whatever they're gonna do it, and you can do the Infinity Stone. You can do. I would actually prefer not to do a time thing. I'd rather them manipulate like the Soul Stone and bring them back rather than like we're just gonna turn out the clock.
Well,
I don't
think
like
it would
that.
Be more more satisfying.
I think what they need to do is get Reed Richards on the case.
There you go.
That's what everybody's clamoring for.
Yeah, let's bring the Fantastic Four in to save the day.
Reed Richards always comes in for stuff like this because he's so smart.
I just think it's so interesting, the future, because they don't need to do another galaxy-destroying thing for, like, a while.
No.
Because you have X-Men that you can play with. You have Fantastic Four now that you can bring in. There's so much possibilities, keeping it on a small level. And I mean, look at, like, Civil War. The stakes are pretty low, and it was one of the best movies.
Yeah, it was good.
You don't gotta go, like, world-ending shit.
No, that's what you do at the end of Phase 2 when Galactus shows up.
Yeah, God. Please, no. Please.
Well,
no.
unfortunately, if it is Galactus, and I have no reason to think it would be, but if it is, that means the Silver Surfer has to show up, which means, by extension, the Fantastic Four are probably around.
Yeah.
So let's not do that. I'm just saying, if you want to do something else that's really like the cap of Phase 2 and or the end of the whole MCU experience, I can't think of anything bigger than Galactus.
Thanos is, well, in arguably in some ways bigger than Galactus, but in some ways not.
Yeah.
Definitely not physically.
No,
but
and only post complete gauntlet.
yeah, that's true too.
Otherwise, Galactus just eats him,
Yeah.
and he doesn't get to see the sunset.
Well, anyway, so this would make it into the time capsule.
Yes.
We'll see if it does in.
Yeah, if we
in
look
20
back on
years.
it in 2039, if we look back and we go, well, was that good or was that all just Marvel nostalgia?
You guys, I loved it. I really liked it a lot, and
Shocking.
And it makes me hate. No, you know what? To be fair, like I wasn't. Doctor Strange I thought was fine. Black Panther I thought was good.
Spider-Man I thought was fine.
Spider-Man I thought was fine. Like I haven't been like all up on Marvel's balls, but I was pretty stoked about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how they made Iron Man like relatable again. He's kind of been a little hard to root for lately with Ultron.
A little
and
aloof.
He's made some mistakes, and this did a lot. So he was very capable in this movie, and I was
And
glad
human.
to see that. Yeah, and human. I liked it.
Well, and you know what? The best thing we can take away from this is Michelle actually saw Thor Ragnarok, so that's...
I did. I finally saw it. I actually want to, like, maybe even tonight watch one of the other movies that I have not seen. So Guardians 2 or Doctor Strange.
I'll take Doctor
I didn't see the
Strange
Spider-Man movie either.
Yeah, probably Strange, and then Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would agree with that order.
Michelle, give us a 45 to 60 second review of Ragnarok, since we already touched on it a ton, and we're not going to have a lot to add. Also, we're at the end of the show, but I do want to know what your thoughts are on it.
It was so fun. That's like the only thing I can actually say about it. I know you guys were saying that it's more of like a comedy. I didn't quite get that. I thought it was still like more in line with the other like Marvel films, but it was very funny. I loved what they did with Thor's character. I loved what they did with Loki's character too. I adored Hela as a villain. I thought she was fascinating. And I just thought it was delightful. And that's all I have to say about it. I mean, I have a lot to say about it, but not in like 45 seconds. Yeah. It was really good. And I was just like, I had a smile on my face like the whole time.
That was I mean, if you remember my review, I was doing like best movies of the year, and I'm like, it was just so fun.
It was so fun.
And what they did with Thor. I was like, he's a character now. Look at that.
A person.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and actually, this is really dumb, but I didn't know that the Hulk could be a part of this movie at all. I was not spoiled for it. I was very much distanced from this movie. So when he came out as the champion, I was like, excuse? Like I was so, but like in a great way. Oh, sorry, I just kicked my table. I was very excited. I loved that. I thought it was so cool.
Believe that.
Yeah, it must have been nice. Because I think I talked about it when we reviewed it, but like I hated the fact that I had seen that in the trailer.
Oh, that's shitty. I had no idea. And
because I love the fact that he just celebrates. Yeah.
I know.
Yes. And if I had known that going in, I
had no clue, and it was just delightful. I was like, this is so cool. And then he had like a friend, but he wasn't really a friend, and he had to like make friends. It was so exciting and fun. And I also really liked Valkyrie. I actually didn't like her at first, and I don't really know why. She's just kind of like abrasive, and that's the point of her character. And then you learn more about her, and it's like so cool. I liked her a lot. I really liked the overall character arcs. It was so good. I actually don't have very many complaints about that movie at all. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies, easy.
I loved what they did with him, and that's why when he came out of the portal and like saved the day, and then made a crater on the battlefield with like lightning in the axe. I was like, hell yeah.
I know. Oh my god.
I had goosebumps. I was going pretty hard.
I didn't appreciate Thor's arc in Infinity War until I went back and literally like that very day and watched Ragnarok. I was like, oh shit, like this is good. like it really, honestly, like you have to see Ragnarok to appreciate what they did in Infinity War. And maybe that's a weakness, I don't know, but I went back and like thought about it and I was like, oh, that was great. That was very satisfying.
They talked about how Mark Ruffalo was like, in these movies are almost starting with Ragnarok, it's almost like a trilogy for the Hulk. And I was like, oh, it's almost a trilogy for Thor, too.
Yes, it is.
And I think it's great, which is funny because he had a trilogy that mostly sucked.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually do wonder how many people were sort of caught off guard by that in a way that Michelle was there, where they watched the first one maybe, and it was, it's fine, maybe even good. And then maybe they watched the second one, that's where they were like, okay, that's it, I'm done with Thor. So they never watched Ragnarok. And then maybe they didn't enjoy Thor as much in Infinity War because of it, because they don't have that backing for him.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the context of Ragnarok, I think some of those jokes don't work in Infinity War.
I didn't get it. I can attest to it. I was like, I don't understand what they're doing with Thor. But I only knew that I was missing out on stuff because you guys had basically told me,
Right.
And so I was like, okay. And so that's literally why I got home after almost a 3-hour movie and just turned on Ragnarok and started watching it because
that's like you not knowing the twist of like Darth Vader's Luke's dad. I mean, it's not
jealous?
that big. I'm just so shocked that you did
everywhere.
The movie was billed as like a World War Hulk movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was the adaptation of that.
I live under a rock when it comes to certain media, which is really weird, but I didn't see the trailer for Infinity War. I had no idea what was going on. Like, it's kind of refreshing in a way to just go in completely blind, and that's what I did for both of those movies, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I'm impressed overall with how they handled most of that stuff. I mean, there's, like you said, very few complaints in most regards there, which is cool.
Yeah, enjoyable, very much so.
All right, well, that's the end of this particular episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed Infinity War as well. There are probably not that many of you out there that haven't seen it, but it's blowing up the box office. It's going to be the biggest thing ever, which is cool. I'm actually curious to see if the second one can surpass it or not. It's weird because it's a sequel of sequels to a sequel of sorts, so I'm not sure.
Right.
Inception.
I feel like some people could come into this one blind, or at least somewhat blind. Maybe they've seen some of the Marvel movies, but not all of them, because a lot of these characters are here. Some you know, some you don't. I don't know if you can go into the second half of Infinity War without having seen the first.
Yeah, so I came into it, I mean, again, I haven't seen like 3 or 4 of the movies that are specific to certain characters who are in it, but most of it landed for me. Again, the Thor thing, it was lost on me. I did enjoy his arc, but I didn't quite understand all the context around it. But overall, they actually did a really good job making it kind of standalone. I will say, I mean, granted, I know about all the OG characters, and I've watched all of those movies, so maybe that's an unfair statement. But I think they did a pretty good job. I don't know how it would even be possible on a 2-parter to just walk in to part 2 with no knowledge of part 1. So, I mean, yeah.
You know, honestly, I think some of Thor's lines in Infinity War play like aloof kind of jackass first half of Thor 1 Thor if you haven't seen Ragnarok.
Yeah, right.
That's how I felt. I didn't get it at all.
It's amazing to me that there's not a ton of difference there, and yet there's a world of difference.
Yep.
Yes.
Like how weird, how interesting it is that one thing can change your perception of something so much.
It goes from like smug to like endearing.
Mm-hmm.
That's oddly subtle.
Yeah.
Like these movies are not known to be super subtle, I would say. I think they're pretty on the nose. But yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's why he is so successful as a character in this movie.
I know they wrote him based off of Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say they maybe not rewrote is the word, but like they re-examined it after the success of Ragnarok.
That's cool.
I was like, thank God.
Respect, totally.
Please do. All right, no show on Tuesday because we did an extra long one for Thursday, and then we'll see where we're at as far as next week. There will be shows. I just don't know what they're going to look like yet, but work in progress. In between episodes, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com. We're in other places. We're on social media as @TeamObjection. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/objectionnetwork for videos 5 days a week for now, but we'll work on that. And you can send emails to the show to objectionnetwork@gmail.com. See you next time.